17th chapter. Have you got that, Rosalie? 17 and verse 1.
Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and spoke with me, saying, Come here, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters.
All right, go ahead.
And with the kings of the earth committed acts of immorality, and those who dwelt on the earth were made drunk with the wine of her immorality.
All right, now who is this great harlot? Who is the great harlot?
Babylon.
Babylon. Now, this is when the church and the state become one again. All right, the Baptists throughout history, as a matter of fact, we're the only people, we're the only denomination that has ever existed from the time of Christ to now, perfectly, we have. But all through down to the ages, even when the Protestant Reformation started. Now, all the Protestant Reformation, mainly those people came out of the Catholic Church. Even the Church of England came out of the Catholic Church. And different people came out of the Church of England and started different denominations and everything. But every one of them, if they could, in some place, they would have a church state. Even America. When America was founded, every state was a church state. Did you know that? If you were in Maryland, you were Catholic. If you were in Pennsylvania, you were, whatever. You were whatever you were in that, and there was no religious freedom at all. The first colony in the United States, what is the United States now, which was the American colonies at that time, was Rhode Island, Providence, Rhode Island. Dr. John Clark went to England, and for 17 years he begged the King of England to allow them to have a colony that was completely religiously free. For 17 years he begged for it. And they said, let's just see, it will work. I mean, if you're Catholic, you can live there without any kind of prosecution. If you're a Baptist, if you're a Methodist or whatever you can be, you can live there and you won't be, you can have a job. They're not going to arrest you for being a heretic. Not going to burn you at the stake or dunk you in the river. They have these dunking chairs. How many of you ever heard of those dunking chairs? A lot of those people were getting dunked and beat and whipped were Baptists in many of the colonies. Who?
No, just to say, I read all that in that book, The Trail of Blood. All this information is there.
Yeah, it's that little book is, and I have some more of them, by the way. I know we ran out of them, but if you need some more, we've got some more of those books. Anyway, Rhode Island became a religious experiment. But every other state and almost every country in the world is a state church. That's all they know. They did not know pure democracy. All right. Now, Babylon the Great, when the state church takes place here again, the world is ripe for it right now. I mean, even America is religiously ripe for a leader to stand up and say, let's go and let's legislate morality and religion. Let's legislate. Let's make it absolutely part of your citizenship that you are baptized and you are a member of a church and you're morally sound. Okay? That's what's going to happen here in the book of Revelation. That's where we're coming to. It's good to see the different ones coming in, the room filling up finally. All right. We're going to try to cover a couple of chapters here today in this. Verse number 3. Tony, do you have that there? Can you read that for me, please?
So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names and blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. All
right. Now this beast, you have to realize that this is very figurative language. The woman is who? The great harlot Babylon. She's the religious society. She's the state church. Okay? Now who's the beast? Remember who this Therion is? That's what the word is in Greek. It's a swift-moving killing machine.
The Antichrist.
He's the Antichrist's system. All right? This is a system under the Antichrist. And this beast is a conquering killing machine. All right? And that's what the Antichrist was, too. So now, this woman is sitting on the beast. And go ahead, Tony.
The woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, having in her hand a golden cup full of abomination and the filthiness of her fornication.
All right. Verse number 5.
And on her forehead a name was written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth.
All right. Many church histories, I know it's not popular today, but in church history, Baptist church history, for hundreds of years, when it talked about the Protestant Reformation, it talked about, well, can anything clean come out of something unclean? Now, that's just plain. That's what Jesus said. Well, John Calvin and Martin Luther and all these came out of the Catholic Church, founding institutions closely related to Catholicism, and they were the popes. They became popes, just like the Pope was in Rome. And they founded systems, and their systems did not have religious freedom in them whatsoever. You were either a Lutheran or you were a Calvinist or you were dead. Calvin had people burned at the stake, and they were Baptist. Well, now today, so many people color, what a wonderful job that Calvin did, what a wonderful job that Luther did. They came out preaching the gospel, and people were saved and all this kind of stuff, and people were set free. Baptists were always doing that. They did that for 1,500 years before Calvin and 1,600 years before Luther. They were always preaching those things. Well, in a sense, every denomination that came out of Catholicism at that time is still unclean. In all reality, because and this is what it's talking about here. Every religious system that lined up with this great big system was unclean. It was immoral. It was wrong. Okay? History has told us one thing. Freedom is fleeting. Even when people can create a democracy, you know what a democracy is? Huh? That's people ruling. That's when people make decisions. Everybody in a democracy is not going to agree with everybody else. That's something about a democracy. You have to recognize their rights as people to have their say-so and to live their lives. Okay? But now, in this type of system here, there is no room, there is no leeway for any personal freedoms. The Antichrist, he's going to come up, that the mark of the beast. We talked about the mark of the beast. Everybody is marked. You have to have a mark on you. And even, I think, this last couple of weeks, they're talking about now impregnating you with marks. So you can buy and sell. Put your credit card numbers in you. All right? And that's exactly what's going to happen in this period of time here that we're talking about during this period of time. Marking everyone. Back in the play, how many of you ever heard of a cowboy? All right. Guess who the first cowboys were? Huh? Who's the first cowboys? They were Indians. The first cowboys were Indians because the Spanish brought over the cattle, and the cattle went roam wild and free, and then they used the Indians because the Indians were slaves. They incarcerated the Indians and made them to become cowboys because cowboys was that was a very dangerous occupation. Finally, in the South, guess who the cowboys were? The black people. All right? And in Mexico, guess who the cowboys were? The indigenous people of the area. All right. What is the term for cowboy in Spanish? Vaquero. All right. Vaca is what? Cow. All right. This is somebody that handles cows. All right. Somebody that handles cows. And that word vaquero, that's older than the term cowboy. Did you know that? It's the oldest term. Cowboy came from that. Well, anyway, they gather up all the cattle because they would be roaming free, and there was thousands and millions of them all over. You know, the United States government paid buffalo hunters to go in and kill all the buffalo and kill all the bison in the whole United States. There was between 80 and 100 million bison, American bison, on the Great Plains, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, all through there in 1800. By 1880, they were nearly extinct because they had given free ammunition and powder and shot to anyone that would kill them. Well, what replaced the buffalo were cattle, many of them wild cattle. Haven't you ever heard of Charles Goodnight and John Chisholm? Well, they were cattle and cowboys. They went out in what they call the open range, and they would gather cattle up. And a guy would say, Charles Goodnight would say, all this range for 100 miles is mine. And John Chisholm would say, all this is mine. And they'd have little cow punchers or little cow outfits all along the way. And they'd go out in the springtime and in the fall, and they would round up all these cattle. And they would brand them and mark them. They would brand them with their brands. And how they would do that, the cows were branded, and then they had a calf follower. They'd brand that cow or that calf with the same brand. They would mark them. And then whatever area they came from, they would cut a notch out of their ear. If it was in the front, it was from this area. If it was in the back, or if it was 2 swallow cuts or whatever, that's how they would mark them. That's an old term because people have marked each other. You know, the black slaves were branded many times. American Indians were branded many, many times in history. Now, at this period of time, people are going to be branded again. They're going to be branded, and they're going to be in one religious system in this great Babylon. And then verse 6, Brother Joe, or do you have that one? Do you have Revelation? Go ahead, Irene.
First of all, on verse 5, would that be a literal sign on the harlot's forehead?
The what?
On verse 5, where it says...
Oh, no, this is a figurative language.
Okay.
All right? Now, you'll see pictures of this. Artists have tried to draw pictures of this where they had it says here, on her forehead was Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and the abominations of the earth. We need to know who she is. It's a religious system, and this is God seeing this. All right?
So the world won't see this.
Yeah, the world doesn't see this. They think she's just fine. They think this system is wonderful. They are following this system, okay? Go ahead, Irene.
Okay. And I saw the woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the witness of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered greatly.
All right, he was just struck out of his senses. That's what he meant. He was just amazed. All right, verse 7.
And the angel said to me, why do you wonder? I shall tell you the mystery of the woman and of the beast that carries her, which has the 7 heads and the 10 horns.
Now we're going to find John writing down the interpretation of this. Okay? He's going to write down the interpretation of this. Do you think the world's leading up to this system?
Yes.
Can you see this? Do you think the world's leading up to it? Can you even see it in your own government? Can you see this situation this coming in? All right. Now, go ahead from where you were there.
The beast that you saw was and is not, and is about to come up out of the abyss and go to the destruction. And those who dwell on the earth will wonder, whose name has not been written in this book of life from the foundation of the world. When they see the beast that he was and is not and will come.
All right. Everything that God does, Satan duplicates. Did you know that? Everything that God does, Satan duplicates. Now, Jesus Christ is eternal. He is eternal God. He is Jehovah God of the Bible. He was. He continued to be. He kept on being in eternity past. He became in space and time. He died on the cross, and He was resurrected and lives forevermore. Do you see what it's saying about the beast here? Do you see? It's saying basically the same thing about Him. All right? And we find out that He was resurrected, and we're going to, as we see. Verse 9. Verse 9. Dr. John, have you got that?
Yes. Here is the mind which has wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sits.
Now here we even have more figurative language. What is mountain in the Bible?
Government.
What? Government. It means government. How many of you seen, most of you have been to my house, I think. A great number of you, because we had different dinners and stuff out there. But in my Indian display cases in there are 2 headbands. And on those headbands are staged things like this. That stands for mountain. That mountain means a tribe or a government. It means the family unit. All right? Well, even in Indian culture, that mountain meant something. It meant the family unit. And this mountain is the government. Now, verse 10. We'll go on, Brother John.
There are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, and the other has not yet come. And when he comes, he must continue a short time.
All right, now go on. Just continue on there.
The beast that was and is not is himself also the 8th, and is of the 7, and is going to perdition.
All right. Now, who's this talking about? The Antichrist. That's who it is. This is the Antichrist. All right? And the Antichrist looks like he's killed someplace, but then the false prophet raises him from the dead, doesn't he? All right? And this astounds the world. Okay, brother, go on a little further.
The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings, and have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast.
Okay, this 1 hour means a period of time. All right? Now, remember, I wish I had, I've got some of these. We're late today in all of our goings-on because we moved and we were in a state of confusion. All right. Here's the tribulation period. A little map of the tribulation period. If you don't have one of these, get one to you. All right? This tribulation period lasts 7 years. That's a period of time. Okay? The first 3.5 years is a period of time. That 7 years is divided into 2 halves. Okay? Matter of fact, the book of Revelation even divides them in days. Tells you how many days it is in different places. But the first 3.5 years is when the Antichrist comes on the scene, when all these kingdoms of the earth are given into his hand. Those are the ones that we call these the Western nations, by the way. These are the ones. Where is the Antichrist going to come from? What nation is he going to come out of?
Israel?
He's going to come out of Israel. He's going to be Jewish. He has to be a Jew because why? He is a false Messiah. Now, no Jew is going to accept anybody but a Jew for a false Messiah. They're very racially divided from the world. And a lot of it is because of bigotry, but also God told them to be separate from the rest of the world. That's how they're going to keep their identity. But this Jewish leader is going to come up. And always Israel has wanted to lead the whole world in righteousness and in truth and everything. And here's her chance, she thinks. The Antichrist is going to build a great temple in Jerusalem. He's going to bring about peace for the first 3.5 years. Now, all this has taken place here. Where did you finish off, Brother John?
12.
Okay. Randy, have you got that open there? 12 and 17 and verse 13.
We're at 13?
Yes, verse 13.
These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast.
All right, they have one purpose, they have one mind, they have one goal. All of these kingdoms, and they give their power, their authority over all these nations to the beast. All right, verse 14, brother.
These shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them, for he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called and chosen and faithful.
All right. Now this jumps ahead. We jump ahead from this part all the way over to here. See that the Battle of Armageddon. All right, see the end of it. Now we know that God's going to win that battle. All right, now some of these things are jumping back and forth in time and chronology here. All right. Where did we finish off there, Randy?
In the 14th.
In the 14th. All right, go ahead with number 15 there.
And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues.
All right. Now said to me, the waters which where the harlot sits. The waters. What are these waters? People. Many waters or people is like a great sea. The Antichrist, when he goes after Israel, what does the Bible say? You know, we looked at that already. The great flood came after the great flood came, and God said He opened up the earth, the powers of the earth, and it drank up the flood of those waters. All right, now it tells you exactly what the waters are. These are the Antichrist army. All right, number 16. John, are you right there?
I have mine in Greek here, and the
Oh.
other printing's too small.
Okay, well, can you read? It's too small? All right. Joe, Anna.
Verse 16.
Yes.
The beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire.
All right. All of a sudden, something's going to happen. Now, here we have a religious leader here. Now, the Antichrist is going to turn on. He's going to turn on Israel, because Israel's part of this too, aren't they? He's going to turn on Israel. This whole economic system that is set up in these nations is going to be totally defunct in one day. And everybody is going to be sad. All the moneymakers and all big business during this time, all the great corporations underneath this Antichrist are going to be devastated. We're going to have a stock market fall like in 1929 and worse than 9/11. It's going to be something else. Okay, go on just a little further.
For God has put it into their hearts to accomplish His purpose by agreeing to give the beast their power to rule.
All right. Now, God has put in their hearts to execute His purpose. We call this, I want you to remember this, the unpreventable progress of God and God's eternal purpose. God's eternal purpose. God wrote what was going to happen here in prophecy thousands of years ago. Many of the things that are written here in the book of Revelation were written 2,000 years earlier even. Not only here, but much earlier than that. And of course the book of Revelation, how long ago was that written? Almost 2,000 years ago. All right?
Jim, we're reading fulfilled prophecy, because John in AD 96 was prophesying that this would come.
Mm-hmm.
And in 312, in Constantine, it did come.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of after the fact.
Well,
when they're prophesying of the church coming.
yeah. Well, during what we call the 10 periods of persecution by the Caesars, some of that was fulfilled. All right? Some of that was fulfilled in those periods of time there. But what we're talking about right now is a period of time that's yet to come. Part of the time, and you can see Nero and Domitian and all of these different ones, they fulfilled some of these. If you lived in the Dark Ages, you would have thought that you were going through the tribulation period at that period of time. Just guess what happened. What happened? God founded His church during His ministry. He gave it marching orders, and the marching orders that He gave it actually were kicked out orders. When you get kicked out into all the nations, then you make disciples and baptize them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. And by the way, they're going to receive the Word of God, and you guard the Word of God with your life. And then up pops up a false religion. They're all over. We have the book of Hebrews that we're studying on Sunday morning and Sunday night. The book of Hebrews was written to the Hebrew Christians because they were going back into Judaism. They wanted to accept Christ, but they still wanted their altars, their sacrifices, their priests, and everything else. Then what we had when the Catholic Church it started to evolve. What did the Catholic Church do? They took many of the sacrifices. They had a high priest. They had a temple, which became the Vatican City, all this stuff. We see all of this all over again. That's just a type of what was going to happen in this last day. We got to see some of that in history, in the dark, dark history. What brought on the Dark Ages? What brought on the Dark Ages?
They took the Bible away.
They took the Bible away, and Catholicism became powerful. And the only way to keep people totally duped and in the dark and manipulating their lives was to keep the Bible out of their hands. Well, God's churches were still in effect all during the time. Then we had the Reformation. People came out of the Catholic Church trying to reform the Catholic Church and bring it back to God, but it was impossible. She was a sow. She was a prostitute. She was a great harlot. You can't reform the harlot because she never was any good. She left the churches. She left the truth and became what she was. She was like the parable of the mustard seed was, this terrible, terrible Christendom. And who rested in the branches of this great mustard tree? The birds, the dirty birds that ate up the seed of God. All right, if you see that, you look at it in the parables and everything. I taught a class on parables. If you want that, I think there were 15 classes. I've got that on CD and tape if you want to go study them. All right, let's go on a little bit further. Who was reading? Anna, go ahead.
The woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth.
Oh. The woman you saw is the great city which reigns over the kings of the earth. She did it once, and many people believe that this will be the revived Holy Roman Empire, or unholy Roman Empire. That all of it are going to be behind the Antichrist. All right. Number chapter meditate. Is that what it says right there, brother, in Greek? Meditate? 18 in verse 1. 18 in verse 1. After these things, that's what meditate means. After these things. After these things. All right. Do you find that, John? Meditate? All right. Brother Bill, are you looking at that right there? All right. 18 in verse 1.
After these things I saw another angel coming down from heaven, having great authority, and the earth illuminated with his glory.
All right. And verse 2. Go ahead and verse 2.
He cried mightily with a loud voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is a dwelling place of demons, a prison for every foul spirit, and a cave for every unclean and heated bird.
I got news for them. They didn't become a place of these evil spirits that have been all the time. The word naos there, that's what it says in Greek, naos, dwelling place. That's also called the Holy of Holies in the tabernacle and in the temple of God. This unholy church was the dwelling place of God. What gives dogmas? What gives altars and stuff power? What makes people bow down to an altar that is nothing but bones in there? Satan, demons, demonic influence, demonic power, demonic drawing. That's what does it. People will go through terrible times. Down in the Philippines, people have themselves crucified. They have themselves crucified. Now, basically, that's blasphemy. I'm going to tell you that right now. That's blasphemy. Christ was crucified in hapax one time. Once for all. Once for all. Nobody ever has to be crucified again. When the Hebrew Christians, some of them became Christians, and by the way, many of these Hebrew Christians were the Essenes, or the Qumranians. Okay? They carried with them the sacrifice and the rituals of the nation of Israel. And when they came into Christianity, they wanted to bring it with them. They hadn't. And then whoever wrote the book of Hebrews says, you can't crucify Christ again. All those animals stood for one thing. They stood for the crucifixion that was to happen. When you crucify an animal again, you have blasphemed God. You don't need to have any more sacrifices. The one sacrifice has already been made, once and for all. Verse number 3, or is it number 2? Where were you? 3. Okay.
For all the nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of fornication. The kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth have become rich through the abundance of her luxury.
All right, that word luxury, that word sensuality, that means unbridled lust. The world today, I mean, I don't watch much television. I watch television or something. I can't understand to watch public television. It's immorality. I can't stand the commercials on it. I don't want to have anything to do with it. It's just foreign to God. People are marketing immorality. They are marketing it. That's what you call poneria in Greek. That is whoredom. That is whoring. That is selling, making profit, God puts in every man and woman a desire. You can call it a lust to be with their mates. That's good. But when that lust takes over you, then it becomes idolatry. Greed. The book of Colossians, we're going to find as we're studying Colossians, we'll be in the same classroom on Wednesday night. The book of Colossians says that greed and immorality is all idolatry, and God hates it. And all of the greed in society today is idolatry. That's where it comes down to. Idolatry. Brother, you got your Bible open there?
Yes.
Okay. Can you read that?
Is that 4?
Number 4.
Then I heard another voice from heaven say, "Come out of her, my people, so that you will not share in her sins, so that you will not receive any of her plagues."
All right. Come out. Come out of people. Now these people, there are those that are in this system but haven't been marked yet. All right? Because they're God's people. They're marked by God, aren't they? All right? So we have people branded, like the old cowboys. They branded and marked, and every cow outfit had their own brand. I even used to have a brand. I had a certified brand one time. And anything that was marked with that brand, you could go to the brand inspector and say, "Oh, that's Jim Phillips." Well, every one of these people, they had brand inspectors back then, and they marked their cattle. Well, God is using this term. They actually got it from the Bible. All right. Go on, brother, for where you sit.
Give back to her as she has given. Pay her back double for what she has done. Mix her a double portion from her own cup.
All right. Now, what happens here, Romans 12:19, Galatians 6 and 7, we have the law of what? Sowing and reaping. When, you remember there's a little short guy. Climbed the sycamore tree down there in Jericho. Oh, who was he? Zacchaeus. All right. And he was a rich man. He was a tax collector. He was a government official. He was a politician. All right, of his day. And the Lord looked at him and said, "Come down, Zacchaeus. I'm going to have dinner with you today." And what did Zacchaeus say? The first thing came out of his mouth. "I'm going to pay back everybody I've robbed." He was converted right there on the spot, just like that. That man was converted, and his life changed. And it started coming out of his mouth, and it came out of his mouth first, "I'm going to do it," and then actions took place. When God saves you, God changes you. He changes your life. The things, the power of sin that had power over your life before, doesn't have the same power that it had before because you have the ability to conquer it in Christ. Because the power that He gives you, the dynamis is what it says, the power over the sins that you had that controlled your life before are no longer that powerful now. All right, now this old gal's going to get paid back for her sins. Double portion. All right? Go ahead, brother.
Okay. Give her as much torture and grief as the glory and the luxury she gave herself. In her heart she boasts, "I sit as queen. I am not a widow, and I will never mourn."
Hold on right there, Brother Richard. In the old days, in the period of time there was no system. Well, God set up in His law a system of welfare. A farmer was not supposed to harvest everything in his fields. It was supposed to be for the widows and the poor and the orphans and things. And they were going there and they were supposed to get what they needed to eat. And society itself, they shared their wealth with those people that were unfortunate. Well, here, this woman sets up here and she said, "I'll never become a widow. I'll never be poor. I'm above all of this. I have absolutely counted all my chickens and I've got all my money in the bank." Well, when you got all your money in the bank, it can become bankrupt, can't it? The bank can become bankrupt. Now, this whole society becomes bankrupt in one day, doesn't it? It becomes bankrupt in a day. The whole monetary system, everything just dies. Remember what happened in the Civil War? We had the South against the North here in America. And what happened actually at that period of time, we hear the slavery situation. But really that wasn't what it was. It was over states' rights. That's why the South left the Union. It was over states' rights. Because the North had slaves too. They had them in factories and everything. And that's when Baptists invented Sunday schools to go in there and get those children out of those factories because they were still in the factories even after the Civil War. All right? But it was states' rights. Every state had the right to say whether they were pro-slavery or not slavery and many other things. Well, when the Civil War was over in 1865, if you were part of the South, all of your money was no good anymore. How many of you ever had a Confederate dollar? You couldn't get one penny out of it as far as the Confederate States of America goes. There's nothing there. There's no bank left. Now this becomes bankrupt. This whole system is bankrupt. The woman is no longer the queen of the heavens, is she? Remember the old name for Los Angeles? All right. The Reina de Los Angeles. You know that? The Queen of the Angels. All right. That's what the city of Los Angeles was called. Well, this was a queen of heaven as far as they were concerned. She was a religious queen. But she gets dethroned all of a sudden. The Antichrist turns on her. The Antichrist turns on her and says, the religious system is now defunct today. You worship me. I am God. And the book of Revelation says, for a short time, Satan is worshipped because this man is the embodiment of Satan. And when they worship him, they worship Satan. Now, they were worshiping Satan before in a roundabout way. But now, because even if you were in this religious system was an enemy against God. Brother Richard, go on from where you were there.
Okay. Therefore, in one day her plagues will overtake her, death, mourning, and famine. She will be consumed by fire, for mighty is the Lord God who judges her.
All right, now we have another tremendous civil war here, don't we? Tremendous civil war. And then verse 9. Go ahead, brother.
Okay. When the kings of the earth who committed adultery with her and shared her luxury see the smoke of her burning, they will weep and mourn over her. Terrified at her torment, they will stand far off and cry.
All right. They're terrified by her torment. All right. Joanne, are you there also? Go on from right there.
On 10,
Yes, verse 10.
they will stand at a distance, terrified by her great torment. They will cry out, how terrible for Babylon, that great city. In one single moment, God's judgment came on her.
All right, they say, ooh-ah, ooh-ah. You know, that's the cry of the torment of the demons. When Jesus cast the demons out of that man there by the Sea of Galilee, the Gadarene demoniac, he said, ooh-ah, ooh-ah. And that's exactly what the term here is. That means woe, calamity, destruction. No hope. No hope. Okay, verse 11, I think is where...
The merchants of the world will weep and mourn for her, for there is no one left to buy their goods.
No more economy. No economy. You know, the world has been plagued politically with two groups in the world. Most of us know who the peons are, don't we? And the princes. That's just the way it is. Well, I'm going to tell you something. It's going to get real radical again right here. All right, and this is it. Okay, go ahead, sister.
She brought great quantities of gold, silver, jewels, pearls, fine linen, purple dye, silk, scarlet cloth, every kind of perfumed wood, ivory goods, objects made of expensive wood, bronze, iron, and marble.
Who's going to be left to buy this stuff when everybody are slaves? Just think, what is a man's wages during it? We saw that in the 6th chapter of the book of Revelation. What's the average person? We're going to have the princes at the top, and we're going to have the peons at the bottom. We're going to get enough to eat for a day that it takes to sustain your body and work like a slave. That's all. That's all you're going to get. You're not going to have anything. If you've got real good flat-screen TVs, if you've got high-powered stereo systems, if you've got beautiful carpet and wonderful furniture and nobody to buy it, you got to have a market for it, don't you? There's no more market now. The world is bankrupt. The whole system has died. It's gone bankrupt. The Antichrist has taken total control over everything. And here we go. Here we go. Go ahead, Aaron.
She also brought cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine, olive oil, fine flour, wheat, cattle, sheep, horses, chariots, and slaves. Yes, she even traded in human lives.
Yeah. Slavery is back on the scene again now. Slavery is back on the scene. If things continue to go like they are right now in America today, at one time in America, all the family had to work to feed the family. The mama, the daddy, and all the children. Now it takes the mama and the daddy, and just barely struggle so many times. Well, right here, they're going to struggle so hard just to eat, just to stay alive. You know, half the world's starving to death right now today. Half the world starving to death. People are dying every day of hunger today. Well, it's going to be widespread. All right. Young lady, do you have a...
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
They will say, the fruit you long for is gone from you. All your riches and splendor have vanished, never to be recovered.
Go ahead and go on the next verse.
The merchants who sold these things and gained their wealth from them will stand far off, terrified at their torment. They will weep and mourn.
Go ahead and continue.
And cry out, woe, woe, O great city, dressed in fine linen, purple and scarlet, glittering with gold, precious stones and pearls. In 1 hour such great wealth has been brought to ruin. Every sea captain and all who travel by ship, the sailors and all who earn their living from the sea, will stand far off. When they see the smoke of the burning, they will exclaim, was there ever a city like this great city? They will throw dust on their heads, and with weeping and mourning cry out, woe, woe, O great city, where all who had ships on the sea became rich through her wealth. In 1 hour she has been brought to ruin. Rejoice over her, O heaven. Rejoice, saints and apostles and prophets. God has judged her for the way she treated you.
All right, that's it. God has judged you. Paybacks have come. All right, the law of sowing and reaping. Read Galatians. Read in the Old Testament the law of sowing and reaping. You cannot go out and sow to the flesh and expect not to get it back. It's the roost. What the old story is, the chickens are coming home to roost. The chickens are coming home to roost. The fleas are returning to the wool. That's what happened. Verse 21. Now, verse 21. Who's got verse 21? Have you got that, Rosalie? That one, verse 21?
Then a strong angel took up a stone like a great millstone and threw it into the sea, saying, so will Babylon, the great city, be thrown down with violence and will not be sound any longer.
Don't continue on.
And the sounds of the harpists and musicians and the flute players and trumpeters will not be heard in you any longer. And no craftsman of any craft will be found in you any longer. And the sound of a mill will not be heard in you any longer.
All right. Now, what it's saying here now, some of you have taken history class from me. I've taught history class many times. I'm going to try to start teaching it again on Sunday night, hopefully in the afternoon, one of these days, because I really enjoy teaching it, because people really learn from that. I know I just brought a little bit to you on Sunday morning when we studied the Trail of Blood and the history of the churches. But during the Dark Ages, how many ever heard of Michelangelo? All right, Michelangelo was put to work by the Pope of Rome, and he was building basically the holy city over there, what they call the Vatican. He was building the Sistine Chapel, painting the chapel and all this stuff. Well, that place was just full of gold and silver and very expensive artists, and there were statues and sculptures just all over the place. Beautiful. Didn't this remind you of this? This very place may be part of this system right here. Now, how did they get the money to do that? Remember how they got the money to do this? They sold indulgences. They told people that their uncle, their aunt, their mom, their dad, their child was in purgatory, and they had to give them a certain amount of money to get them out of purgatory. They bled the paupers, and they built this tremendously rich. Do you think any pauper, any field hand had anything in their home that even resembled gold, let alone being gold? This place was just gold-plated, basically, with pearls and silver and precious stones and many of these crowns that these guys wore on their heads and on their clothing. Well, God's going to bring judgment against all of this, because all of this was leading up in history. Everything that we see there was leading up to exactly what takes place during the tribulation period, when this great harlot is over all society. And they said there won't be the sound of a shovel, there won't be the sound of a chisel or a hammer left. All of the great artists will be on welfare. They will be in the soup lines, and there won't be any soup lines, so to speak. All right, let's go on a little bit further. Ruth, are you right there in this place? Could you read that for us?
The light of the lamp will never shine in you again. The voice of the bridegroom and bride will never be heard in you again. Your merchants were the world's great men. By your magic spell, all the nations were led astray. In her was found the blood.
Okay, now hold on just a minute right there. They were deceived by your, it says sorcery. What's it say in King James? Anyone have King James there?
Sorcery.
Sorcery? What it means is drug abuse. Drug abuse. Drugs. This is the word pharmakia. Pharmakia. By their drug abuse, by their illegal drugs, by their uppers and downers and all of this stuff, the drug trade rule the world. Verse 24 now.
In her was found the blood of prophets and of the saints, and of all who have been killed on earth.
All right. Then we have another verse here again, and it says meditate. Again, meditate. We better quit. Thank you, brother. We're going to... Chapter 19. It's warm in here. Next week, I hope. Now, some of you like this warm. I tell you what, we're right studying the flames of hell, aren't we? And we can fan right along with them. But we'll stop right here, and we'll come back to the 18th chapter of Revelation this next week. Now, are you understanding this just a little better? It's not such a tremendous mystery, is it? All right. Thank you for your attention today. And tell everybody where we are. I think we've got a pretty good group today.
There's my number right there.
Brother Art, you come up here and I'll turn it over to you. We'll probably have to kind of quickly get out of here for the next class. We are late today.